Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen. Chris Smitherman not here today. He's out camping. Got the weekend off. I'm Dave Holcomb. And I see you've got a mascot there, Tom.
Yeah.
That bear is normally there, I think, but he's wearing a helmet today.
It's been a while, but yeah, I put my hard hat on him that is particularly has a tie into today's news and do a little bragging. Feeling good.
Yeah, we're gonna. It's my job today to keep Tom, on track, and not only talking about the Chicago Bears, but for good reason. Tom is excited about the trade that went down yesterday.
Yep, absolutely. And just to let you know, I called this a couple of weeks ago that this was going to be the trade, that this was going to be the team. So yeah, it's not just the fact that the Bears did it right, getting DJ Moore and getting a boatload of draft picks. I called it.
I think you called it after me, though, didn't you? Didn't I mention Carolina first?
Did you? I don't know. I don't remember.
I think we can. We'll both take an assist on it.
Yeah, let's go.
The show called it.
That's fine.
I proposed it. I don't know if I said it was definitely going to happen, but I said it's a possibility.
Once you mentioned it, it was the one that I knew was going to come about. It made too much sense.
Of all the silliness I've proposed, that's the one that you like the most.
I didn't think it was silly. As I said, the minute it came up, I figured that was the one that the Bears were going to take. That was the team that would move up. Just because, again, I took some heat from Colts fans last week on Twitter, because I mentioned that Frank Reich has never had a good quarterback to deal with in Indianapolis. And I got a couple of Colts fans who came back to me, oh, that was Reich's decision to bring those guys in. Well, Reich might have said it would be nice, but the general manager still makes those deals, whether or not he likes them or not. So that's still Chris Ballard making those deals.
I thought they were going to get mad at you because, he did work with Andrew Luck. He did work with Phillip Rivers, future Hall of Fame quarterback, although, it was Rivers last season, but they went to the playoffs with Rivers, and Andrew Luck was still very good. It was he won comeback player of the year with Frank Reich as his head coach. Colts fans would take bigger issue with that from your state.
He could never, he kept, 4 quarterbacks in 4 years? Yeah, that's the rough thing.
5 years.
He never could establish a team with just one quarterback, grow with a quarterback. He made a mistake with Carson Wentz. We all did. I thought being back with Frank Reich might be the thing that Wentz needed, and turns out Wentz needed a lot more than that. But,
I think it would. I've had a lot of thinking about the Colts quarterback situation in the last few months, covering them for Heavy. And I know that this might not make sense to a lot of people because you don't want to live with a mistake. But I almost feel like the fact that they brought in Wentz for only one season was the worst thing they could do. If they had not brought him in at all, that probably would have been better. But if you bring him in, he's probably not going to get worse in his second year with the same offense, with the same team. He wasn't a complete disaster. They were 9-8.
No, he wasn't a complete disaster, but it was a disastrous finish to the season.
It was.
And that kind of, and I think Wentz kind of played himself out of Indianapolis because of the way those last couple of games went down because he missed one because he wasn't COVID vaccinated, and then came back out and played a terrible game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, that's, I think, was the kind of like the deciding factor in why Wentz didn't stay in Indianapolis, why they didn't want to keep him.
Well, I think my take would be it was an overreaction to one game, and it was an overreaction from the owner. It was Jim Irsay's decision to move on from Carson Wentz. It wasn't Frank Reich's. It wasn't Chris Ballard.
Wow.
And I think Frank Reich liked that they were going for Matt Ryan. I think everybody in the organization, whether they wanted to move on from Wentz or not, thought Ryan was an upgrade. But then, I mean, the offense completely fell apart.
Yeah.
All the question marks you had about the Colts last offseason, left tackle and wide receiver came to fruition. They didn't answer those questions. And then, Matt Ryan wasn't really left with much to work with. And by the middle of the season, it was pretty apparent that Matt Ryan also probably should retire. So
yeah,
I don't blame really any of that on Frank Reich. And
I don't blame it on Frank Reich. I think Reich did the best with what he had available.
Yeah. And honestly, I think if Frank Reich had remained the head coach, they probably win more games than they won with Jeff Saturday, and they're not picking number 4. So
yeah,
they definitely would have beat Minnesota. I don't think with an NFL head coach do you blow a 33-point lead at halftime.
No, you don't. Oh my God!
Not that was all Jeff Saturday's fault, but I think that a lot of the decision making in the second half and taking the foot off the gas was a result of a very inexperienced head coach, and that doesn't happen. They probably get one extra field goal or one longer drive in the second half and score some points. And I mean, that's the difference. They don't lose that 33-point lead. But today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. We're going to spend a bulk of today's show talking about what we already are discussing, the Bears trade with the Carolina Panthers. And we also have some other topics that we'd love to get to too. And we want to know what you guys want to talk about. Send us what you think about NFL free agency coming up next week. The legal tampering period begins Monday.
Yes.
The legal tampering period name, legal tampering.
I know. So do I. I love that.
And then free agency pretty much begins on Monday. You're going to hear reports of players signing, and then officially they can begin signing on Wednesday, and that's really when free agency will start. So it's a really exciting time for everybody in the league, but exciting also with this draft trade that's happening, and a bunch of quarterbacks signed big contracts this week.
They did.
One quarterback still looking for a contract. That's Lamar Jackson. So we're going to have a really busy show today, Tom.
Yeah, I think so. We already got comments coming in, so I know. Yeah, we're going to be moving pretty good. Might as well mention the sponsor real quick before we.
Yeah, I did mention it. Didn't put up the banner. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Get started by downloading the app. It's free, but when you sign up, use our promo code ASU, and when you put down your first deposit, you will get a 100% match with our promo code ASU. So, and that supports us, it supports the show. It also gives you some free money to work with on Prize Picks. You can place entries on the NBA, NHL, baseball is coming up real soon in a few weeks. And they have some other sports as well, college basketball, Premier League soccer
is coming.
Yeah, pretty much everything, that's in season, not football right now, not NFL anyway, but all kinds of other sports available on Prize Picks. And I have a suggestion for Prize Picks today.
Oh,
over under 5.5, the number of times that Tom mentions DJ Moore today.
Well, let's see. we can go for that, but that's a good one.
Going over or under?
5.5. I will take the over on that one.
I'm taking the over as well.
Fans, what do you think? How many times will Tom say DJ Moore today?
That one doesn't count. That
one doesn't count. Oh, come on.
From here on, we're going to keep a tally. Got my pencil. Number of times that Tom says DJ Moore over the next 50 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It takes a talented wide receiver, talking about DJ Moore, takes a talented wide receiver out of the NFC South. The problem is now you've got a team that's going to pick up a second quarterback, other than the Saints that got the jump on the NFC South by picking up Derek Carr and officially signed him to his contract today. Schefter just came out with that a little bit ago, showing a picture of Derek Carr signing his contract. So he is officially signed, and probably, and I know Derek Carr isn't the greatest quarterback in the league. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. Not, will he? He is competent though, and I think he's better than what the Saints had last year with Andy Dalton. Yeah. And the Saints kept themselves in the playoff hunt for a while with Andy Dalton as their quarterback. So I think this is a positive move for the Saints, and now puts the pressure on the rest of the division to get a quarterback that they feel can compete to keep up with what the Saints did. And as I said, the Panthers already did that. They may have lost DJ Moore, but they've gained they've actually gained a quarterback. They get the quarterback that they want. Whoever they want is going to be leading the Panthers next season. So whether it's Richardson, I think it's going to be CJ Stroud personally.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how they evaluate quarterbacks heading into the draft, because Frank Reich's already said that, or David Tepper, that we have a month to figure out which quarterback we want. We have a month to evaluate quarterbacks. They are going quarterback, but we knew that. We knew that going in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you trade up and you give up as much as you do, you're definitely taking a quarterback with the number one pick. I guess a couple of things that I want to respond to what you said. I do like the move for both teams. I like the move for the Bears. How can you not, when they have the quarterback that they like already? So you move out of the number one spot and you get as much as you can to do that. They did move back maybe more than I would have preferred,
but they still get a blue chipper. I mean, they're going to get the guy they want on defense too.
Oh yes, that's what I'm like. I guess Will Anderson probably is not going to be there.
No.
Jalen Carter isn't going to be there probably. I mean, that's probably not a guy you want to take anyway, you personally. But you're going to get a good player at number 9 for your defense. And you already have your quarterback, and you gain a lot of draft capital moving out of number 1 back to number 9. And we're talking free agency today too. And it was a comment from Tony a little bit ago. Tony, you're right. $94.5 million in salary cap space for the Bears. That leads the NFL. So they're in the best position probably going forward with draft picks, and in a great position with the salary cap. So how can you not like the position the Bears are in? But I like the trade for the Panthers as well. As you hit the nail on the head, you're moving up. You get your choice of quarterbacks, and that's, you gave up a lot for that, but their fan base has to be confident that, man, our brain trust has the conviction that they believe in somebody in this draft so much they're willing to give up all of that to go and win. And that's,
I think Panther fans are going to be happy because, I mean, they've suffered through the quarterback position the last couple of years. Sam Darnold isn't it. And they tried to bring him in, and PJ Walker we knew wasn't going to be it. And Baker Mayfield failed miserably in Carolina last year. But then they had a terrible head coach too. I mean, you look at that. Matt Rule was on my hot seat from the very start. I figured he was going to be out of a job fairly soon in Carolina. He lasted longer than I thought he would. So, didn't he, Zozo? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it lasted longer than Zozo thought he would too. So Zozo's here on the show today. So if you got any questions for Zozo, just put them in the comments section. We'll get to it. But what was I saying?
Well, one other thing I wanted to throw in there in response to the start of this conversation, the Athletics' Joe Pearson, who covers Carolina, tweeted last night and said that Scott Federer, who's the GM of the Panthers, and Frank Reich have conviction on a couple of different quarterbacks at the top. So they like a few different ones, Tom. You said that they have to figure out which one they like. Well, it seems like, according to this report, they already like a few. They have to figure out which one they like the most.
Right. Which one they like the most.
Is a good thing as well, that they have these options and maybe they can't go wrong with who they pick, but they have to figure out which one they like the most. But then the second part of his tweet I found very interesting from Pearson. He says if they end up liking more than one, they could potentially trade back down, which would be very interesting. I would assume they're not going to trade down far, but maybe a team like the Colts could still move up to number 1. Carolina drops back to number 4, and they don't get the quarterback of their choice, but they get some of that draft stock back, and then they get one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this class. So, there's a moving and shaking already in the draft, and maybe we're not done with movement at the top of the draft board.
It's possible if they think Will Levis might be the guy to bring in. Instead of Stroud and Bryce Young, but I think they're going to stay up there. I don't think they're going to make that second move. I think they could probably move back. I don't know what the draft board looks like after this trade. I don't know what else they have to do, but I think you move up to number 1 for a reason. To get your quarterback. If you think that your quarterback, your franchise quarterback is sitting there to be had, you're staying in that number 1 position. You're going to get him. I don't think there's any other reason why you give up the capital that the Panthers gave up to move up and just to move back and get some of that capital back and not get their quarterback. They are up there. They are going to stay at number 1, and they will take their pick of quarterbacks come draft time.
I would expect they will stay at number 1 as well, but I just found that to be very interesting that right away after the trade was made, pretty much hours after, there was a report from the Athletic that, hey, maybe the trading isn't done at number 1. So
I think it is.
Okay. We'll get to some comments here. Tony, we agree with you 100% on this, that Frank Reich is laughing at Jim Irsay. Moving up in front of him, and Reich is really a class act. He didn't make a big deal about being replaced by Jeff Saturday and getting fired or whatever, but it was embarrassing, and it was more embarrassing for the Colts than Frank Reich. But I'm sure Frank Reich didn't like it, and he just didn't make it known publicly. So yeah, Reich is getting the last laugh, and I believe they play each other this year, so that's going to be really fun. Yeah.
Let me look that up. I don't have the schedule in front of me either. And Pro Football Reference doesn't have it up yet. They probably will after the new league year. But it'd be interesting.
They do, because so the Falcons are, of course, in Carolina's division. So if the NFC South plays the AFC South, and the Falcons will play the Colts as well. Right. And the Falcons last played the Colts 4 years ago, I believe, 2019, in week 2 or week 3. They played the Colts, I think, that year. That was the first year I was covering the Falcons full time.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so that was 4 years ago. So the rotation would be Indianapolis is coming to Atlanta. I don't know where that game will be between the Colts and Panthers, Carolina or Indianapolis. But, yeah, I'm 99% sure they're going to play each other. So that'll be one to circle. That one will be fun.
Tony, he wasn't saying Jim Irsay is a class act, saying Frank Reich is a class act.
Yes. Definitely Frank Reich is a class act, Not
He
Demers.
was not saying hearsay.
D. Jerome says that he hopes that the Falcons draft Jalen Carter if he drops. Jerome also said that Panthers gave up the farm for a rookie quarterback. I think he's putting it as a negative. And it is a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot to move up to number one, but no one is going to remember what you give up if CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever they pick, is a star.
Yes.
No one is going to care.
Nope. Absolutely not. Not going to remember that.
I know it's not exactly the same situation because Patrick Mahomes didn't go number one. He fell to number 10, but the Chiefs had to move up from the mid-20s to number 10. Anybody remember what they gave up for him?
No.
Crickets.
Yeah.
Why? Because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
Called two Super Bowls.
Right. And I don't want to infer that, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud is Patrick Mahomes. That's not my point.
No.
My point is that if they are franchise quarterbacks, and if you believe they are a franchise quarterback, then you go up and you get him. Of course, there is some risk with that. And I think that's why Ballard is hesitant to do it. He's like, it's too risky. But if you just sit there and do nothing, then you're going to end up in this quarterback.
You just end up in quarterback purgatory. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Quarterback purgatory. Worst case is quarterback hell. And you are just cycling through guys because you're never going to pick, you gotta take that risk and take somebody in the draft. Because unless you're I think Ballard wants to be the number one. I'm picking number one. I don't have to move up to get it. And Andrew Luck is available.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. And it's like, that's not realistic for about 90% of the teams. And that's the way the Colts have landed their last two franchise quarterbacks. But that's just once in a blue moon and just so happened to work out for the Colts.
You managed to have that first pick when you had the top, one of the top quarterbacks in the land available. And you knew that he was projected to be a top quarterback, one of the best coming into the league. So can I make one comment, Dave, off topic that just came through? I just saw this on my Twitter feed. Former head coach, Minnesota Vikings head coach Bud Grant just passed away.
Oh.
And the Minnesota Vikings just announced it. And let me just say that I remember Bud Grant from when I first started following football in the black and blue division. And I tell you, Grant hated playing indoors. Grant loved playing out in the elements in Minnesota. He liked players who played out in the elements. You never saw Bud Grant with a heavy coat on outside. It was always shirt sleeves.
Yeah.
Just an incredible coach. Vikings picked him up out of the Canadian Football League, and he was just defined the franchise for a long time. And very sad. I'm not a Vikings fan. I'm a Bears fan. I'm not a Vikings fan. It'd be like a Falcons fan being a Saints fan. But but Bud Grant, you just had to respect because of the way he coached and the man he was. And I am very sorry to see that Bud Grant just passed away. So,
how old was he?
Oh God, let me see. 95. 95. So all that cold weather didn't hurt him. And all that 0-degree weather and shirt sleeves. He was tough. He was a tough man. So, yeah. So I'm just very sad to hear that. And I just wanted to cut in to say that because I thought it was.
Yeah, of course. Always. I mean, it's exciting to get breaking news while we're on air. Of course, we don't like that kind of breaking news.
No.
But, it's very sad to hear he's passing, but I'm what a life, 95 years.
Yes.
And a great head coach in the NFL. Couldn't quite win the Super Bowl, but was a terrific head coach and led the Vikings for a long time and
one of the greats. Yep.
Yeah, and maybe the best franchise that has yet to win the Super Bowl. I know you don't like having that title, but a very historic franchise, despite not winning the championship.
It really is, considering that they owned the NFL in 1960. So, yeah, they still have a lot of history to them, and they are, they're a tough team. They've always been a tough franchise. I've always been happy that they've been in the same division with the Bears. The NFL has kept the Bears, Lions, Packers, and Vikings together through all their different
division realignments.
Yeah, realignments. That's the word I was looking for. That they've kept them all together, and so you learn to respect guys like Bud Grant.
Tony says, I missed this last night, that Otis Taylor.
Yes, Otis Taylor passed away too.
And of course, I mean, Chiefs and Vikings met in Super Bowl IV. So
yep, they sure did. And the Chiefs had something to prove because the Chiefs lost Super Bowl I, and they went out there. Super Bowl IV went out on the field with something to prove. And basically, it's one of the games that changed pro football.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings on the first drive, the Chiefs' first drive, the Vikings kind of held the Chiefs fourth down on the Vikings 40. And Vikings defense left the field thinking they had done their job, that the Chiefs were going to punt. And the Chiefs brought out Jan Stenerud. And he nailed the field goal from, about over 46, 47 yards out, and took a lot of the wind out of the Viking sails because they realized that, stopping a team at the 40 or something doesn't automatically mean we're going to get the punt. We get the turnover. It changed the game because all of a sudden a team could score from back there. And it really took a lot of wind out of the Viking sails when Stenerud was sent out. Stram sent him out, and he made that field goal because the defense it took all that pride out of the defense. So it was a big moment in NFL history.
Well, and the game was, we always talk about the Jets being the reason why the two leagues merged, but the Chiefs were just as important. The Chiefs proved that it wasn't a fluke what the Jets did the previous year.
Exactly. Well, see, the Jets saved the merger. The merger actually was agreed to in 1966.
Oh, okay.
However, after the Chiefs and Raiders got beaten pretty soundly by the Green Bay Packers in the first two Super Bowls, there were a lot of NFL owners who were thinking that, do we want to do this? Is this league actually as good as we thought? Do we want to actually go through with this merger? And with the Colts favored by 26, I think it was 26 points against the Jets, and the Jets won, that finally told the NFL owners that the AFL could play with NFL teams. Yeah. And that solidified the merger for the AFL NFL. I mean, Joe Namath gets a lot of credit for that game. He didn't have a great game, but he never turned the ball over.
That's true.
He never turned the ball over. He never gave the Colts a chance to get back in the game. He played a solid game at quarterback, kept his team in it, and the defense did the job. So, but still, I mean, Namath, I think, put confidence in the Jets' minds that they could win the game. So, yeah, a lot of NFL history was made those first Super Bowls 3 and 4 because, as I say, the NFL owners were really were doubting whether or not the merger was a good idea. There were some that wanted to let the AFL stay separate and let them eventually go out of business. So it did save that merger. And of course, we've gone on from 1970 when the merger took place. We've gone on from there, and it's all been history. I mean, this league has really taken over the sports landscape, and part of it is because of that merger.
Yeah, absolutely. Larry Orange says Dawson and Taylor, what a combination.
Yep.
Yeah, they hooked up in that Super Bowl too. Super Bowl
Yep.
4.
That's right.
Very memorable touchdown in that Super Bowl victory for Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to some more comments. We got a lot coming in. Thanks so much. Keep sending them our way. Audio Garden 79 says, I trade my house if it meant I didn't have to watch Sam Darnold as my team's starting quarterback.
I'm with you there. You are so right. Yeah, Sam Darnold is just not there. Wasn't there with the Jets. He's not there with the didn't make it with Carolina, was not the pickup that they needed. And yeah, you just don't want to see Sam Darnold starting quarterback for your team.
This question was sent to us a while ago. I didn't want to forget about it. Gary asked, given the big news of Panthers trading up, do you see anyone else trading up to get a coveted QB or edge rusher?
Oh, wow. Good question, Gary. Because it's going to be interesting. The Cardinals are in a good spot to get another quarterback. They're not going to get a quarterback. They'll probably take offensive lineman or one of the edge rushers. Texans are going to take a quarterback, but Texans don't get their choice of quarterback anymore.
Right.
The Seahawks have re-signed Geno Smith. They might. Detroit Lions might, but they got their edge rusher last year in Aiden Hutchinson. Detroit might be the landing spot for Carter to bolster that defense even more. So I would not be surprised to see Detroit take Carter and move on from there. So I don't know. I think there's probably going to be some moves. It's hard to tell sometimes. Right now, Houston's going to get a quarterback. Are the Falcons going to trade up? What are the Falcons going to do? And this is what it comes down to is, do you think Desmond Ridder is going to be the guy you want? Do you go with another season of Desmond Ridder and wait for what is expected to be a fairly loaded quarterback class next year? So there's a lot of and the Falcons need an edge rusher. I don't want to see them take a quarterback. I want to see them take an edge rusher.
Yeah.
But Ridder is fine throwing the shorter ball. Not very good throwing the deep ball, or he hasn't shown he's been very good throwing the deep ball yet. And if you can't throw the deep ball in the NFL, you're not going to go many places as a quarterback. So it's tough to say, because now I think the pressure really is on Atlanta, what they want to do. And, I don't know if they might have to move up if they want a quarterback. I'm not saying might. They have to move up if they want a quarterback.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is going to take one. Texans are going to take one. Raiders are going to take one. So 4 quarterbacks are going to go right away in the top 10. So I think, if the Falcons want that quarterback, they're probably going to have to move up. So don't be surprised if the Falcons make a deal. However, how much draft capital do the Falcons have? You don't want to see this team. You want to see this team building depth, because they're not going to be a serious playoff contender next year. You need to see this team building depth. And I would hate to see them give up a lot of draft capital to move up and go from there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they evaluate their team going forward.
I think that's a fair question to ask. Would Atlanta be interested in moving up? I haven't heard anything to indicate they are. No. I don't think it's on their radar of possible moves they might make. And basically our comment section shares that sentiment that Tony really doesn't want them to move up. And Wallace says, I don't think we're moving up in the draft. So another team I want to throw out there, though, is the Raiders. I mean, would the Raiders be interested in moving up to number 3 if they have a quarterback that they like, that they think will still be there at number 3, or if they like 3 of the quarterbacks in the class, they can get one of those 3 at number 3. And then we keep circling back to the Colts, but the Colts, if they just keep sitting at 4 and watch a second team move up in front of them, they're in really big trouble. So
Yes,
I mean, I wouldn't rule out the Colts moving up one spot to make sure that they get one of the top 3 quarterbacks. They're probably not going to get Stroud or Young now, and that's been a possibility. And at least with Stroud, depending on when you're looking at mock drafts, how early you are looking at them. I mean, I've seen Stroud to the Colts at number 4. I've seen Stroud even falling past 4 in mock drafts, probably a while ago, a few months ago. That's not going to happen now. But so if the Colts if they like Richardson, because I don't think Young and Stroud are going to be there, but if they like Richardson and they're a little nervous about another team going up to get Richardson, then you could see the Colts move up to 3 and ensure that they get Richardson and no one else does.
Yeah, I think Richardson might be a mistake. Richardson is a combine prospect, kind of made himself visible at the combine, but I think if you go back to the tape, I don't think he's as impressive. There's a lot of problem with his tape. So, I mean, again, yeah, you can make yourself visible at the combine, but you still got to go back to the film. And I don't know if Richardson holds up. Let's see, Carolina. Yeah, I think Carolina ends up with Stroud. I think the Texans end up with who's the other? Oh, God. Just blanked on the name.
Bryce Young?
Bryce Young. So I think the Texans get Bryce Young. And then I think the Colts sitting at 4 are going to have their choice between Richardson and Levis. I don't know if they need to move up to get that.
Probably not, but you don't know.
You don't know.
We didn't know.
If the Raiders, if they're taking the chance that the Raiders don't move up.
Yeah.
Because, again, the Cardinals just gave big money to Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray is their future for the next couple of years. So, yeah, the Cardinals, I think, are holding the next valued trade position in the draft at number 3.
Well, I want to propose another team perhaps moving up to number 3 or maybe even number 4. And that leads us into the other conversation we wanted to have today, which is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was the Ravens placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson this week, which means that he will get paid $35 million and change for the 2023 season, but he's not signed beyond 2023. And because it's the non-exclusive franchise tag, he is open to negotiate with other teams to get a bigger contract extension than the $35 million on the franchise tag from Baltimore. So he can negotiate with any team he wants. And if he comes to an agreement with another team, the Ravens can match it if they want, or they can say, go ahead, we'll let you go. And that other team has to give the Ravens 2 first-round picks.
Right.
So I think popular take right now is that Indianapolis is interested or should be interested in Lamar Jackson, which would then send the number 4 pick to Baltimore. Are they a candidate, whether they land the 4th pick or if Lamar Jackson goes to a different team with a lower draft pick in the first round? Could the Ravens be a team that then moves up to number 3 to take, Richardson or Levis? That would kind of be crazy, but I think it's possible.
It is possible. It's very possible. And it's going to be interesting to see how this Lamar Jackson drama plays out for the next couple of months, because that could very well take place. If depending on what happens with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And right now it's a mess. And there's a lot going into it that there's a lot going into this thing that it's hard to really nail where you think Lamar Jackson's going to end up and how this entire situation is going to unfold. Because there's too many variables. Jackson doesn't have an agent.
Yeah.
Jackson's being advised by the NFLPA, and the NFLPA, I'm sure, is the party that is pushing Jackson to say, I want a fully guaranteed contract, because the NFLPA, that's what they want to see.
Sure.
And you got Jackson looking at Deshaun Watson's contract.
Yeah.
And saying, why shouldn't I get that? Even though it's a terrible contract and the Browns were idiots for doing it.
Yeah.
It's there. You got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't take it back. It's out there. You got to deal with it. You got to deal with what other quarterbacks think about that contract. And whether, no, Deshaun Watson, normally the latest quarterback always sets the new market price. Deshaun Watson, I don't think set a market price. I think he went way beyond market price.
Right. Yeah. He set a new market price way out of the stratosphere.
Yes, he sure did. So it will be interesting to see because, I think Jackson could end up with Indianapolis. Now, I know from what I heard, the Falcons are not going to bid on Lamar Jackson.
I don't understand that at all. I really don't get that. And I would love to hear from our fans watching,
right,
what you think about the possibility of Lamar Jackson coming to Atlanta. And not even him coming to Atlanta, but the fact that, as far as I know, the Falcons aren't even interested in negotiating with him.
No.
Not even interested in a meeting. And that, to me, is just ridiculous. And
I think the Colts are another team that said they weren't interested.
The Panthers were too.
Yeah, but Panthers don't need to be.
Well, yeah, but this was a week ago or 5 days ago. The Panthers said no. The Saints said no, and I know the Saints don't need a quarterback anymore. But I don't know about the Raiders, if they've been one of those teams that said no as well. But a majority of the teams in the top 10 that need a quarterback, whether they were in a position to take a quarterback or not before this trade, yesterday's trade, came forward and said, we're not interested in Lamar Jackson. And the only theory I can really come up with why that is the case is these owners and general managers are I know I'm suggesting collusion here, but they're getting together and they're saying, hey, we got to take a stand against this ridiculous $230 million contract that Watson got, and Jackson wants something similar. So we all got to make a wall and say, we're not interested at all in Lamar Jackson. And that's what it seems like is happening to me.
Yes, that has been suggested. Most prominently by Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. That has been suggested. That there might be collusion going on, or there might be the beginnings of collusion going on with this Lamar Jackson situation. So it's going to be interesting to see because, if nobody negotiates with Lamar Jackson, if you got these teams that obviously need quarterbacks and are saying, no, we're not going to go out there for Lamar Jackson, who's still young. Yeah, he's been injured the last couple of years, but still young. And, he's got a lot of time, it's hard to tell because Lamar Jackson's a mobile quarterback. He's a running quarterback. And sometimes it's not easy.
I know what you're trying to say.
Quarterbacks worry me because one hit, all it takes is one hit.
I know, but And I get that he is a running quarterback, but only to a certain extent because he's the best passing running quarterback the league has ever seen.
Yes, that's true.
He is not Cam Newton. He is
No,
not,
right.
some other running back that is only, or I'm sorry, some other quarterback that's only a good quarterback because he can run. Lamar Jackson is good even without his running ability. He is a passer, and he is a quarterback that's always been in a pro-style offense.
Yes.
Going back to college, he was in a pro-style offense at Louisville. So, I mean, he hasn't even had to adapt to passing in the NFL. He was doing it in college.
Yeah.
So these narratives that have been built around Jackson really bother me, to be honest, about how he's only good because he runs, or he's not a pro-style quarterback. He is. And he's a pro-style quarterback.
Guess what? The quarterback position is changing.
It is. That's true.
It's changing. You still have to be able to pass. You still have to be able to drop back and pass. But mobility is something that is new to the quarterback position. And you see what it did for the Eagles with Jalen Hurts.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, and Hurts could still throw the deep ball. He threw a couple of deep balls in the Super Bowl that were outstanding.
Yeah.
So, it's just a new facet to the quarterback position. And people are going to start getting used to that. There's still going to be drop back passers all the time, non-running quarterbacks, but it is an extra weapon if you have it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see moving forward.
And ideally you want to get a quarterback that doesn't just run. You need a passing quarterback as well, of course, because you need both. But as he gets older and runs less, he's still a quarterback that you can have on your team. He's not over the hill at 30 years old.
No, right, exactly.
Look, Lamar Jackson will have to change his game once he's 30.
Yes, he will.
But he's a quarterback that I think will have sustained success in this league for a long time. If you build the, put him in the right system. That's the other thing that I think is hurting his chances of landing a big time deal somewhere else. Is Baltimore has not been able to develop any wide receivers with him. And they have a coordinator in Greg Roman the last few years, who was fired, by the way, but has had really no emphasis on the passing attack.
No,
it wasn't because Lamar Jackson can't throw. It's because that was how Roman designed his offense.
Right. That was how Roman designed his offense with Jackson in it. It was a throwing offense until he got Jackson. He retooled the offense for Jackson. But they haven't done anything at the wide receiver position to help Jackson out. Todd Andrews is an outstanding tight end, but you got to have more than that. That if you want to have a passing game, and it's like the same thing. Talking about the Bears and Justin Fields, DJ Moore, gives Fields an actual. That's three. Gives Fields he gives Fields a real target instead of just Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, who was the jury's still out on. But the Bears did trade their first pick in the second round for Claypool.
Yeah.
But with DJ Moore, you're going to see now whether Justin Fields is your quarterback, because you can go back into the draft next year. Now that you got draft capital, they can go back in the draft next year and pick up another quarterback if Fields falls on his face next year. I don't think he will.
Yeah.
I don't think he will. I like Fields' arm. I like the fact that Fields still looks downfield when he's running. Until he's past the line of scrimmage, there's nothing else he can do. But DJ Moore just opens up the game so much for the Bears that, and that's something that Lamar Jackson really hasn't had, a guy to open up the game for him at wide receiver. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
A few comments I want to get to, or actually a couple questions, I believe. Jerome says Ravens will match any offer and the Falcons will be left holding the gun like with Matty Ice, and Ritter will lose confidence. If you weren't worried about that with Matt Ryan last year, you can't be worried about that with Desmond Ridder, who was a 3rd-round pick and started 4 games, and you're not even sure if he's your franchise quarterback.
Right.
I mean, Matt Ryan is the greatest player in Falcons history, and they didn't care to go. They went after Deshaun Watson anyway. And we don't know what the contract offer was. Obviously, it wasn't $230 million guaranteed, or maybe he's in Atlanta, not Cleveland. But I don't understand going after Deshaun Watson last year when you had a quarterback, maybe over the hill quarterback, but you had a franchise quarterback, a guy that's been there for a long time. Now you have no quarterback, and you're not even going to talk to Lamar Jackson. It really does not make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
And, sorry, do you have?
Well, you could say that Deshaun, it depends on what Arthur Smith wants, but you could say he would have had to tailor his offense a lot more than Deshaun Watson too. So, I mean, Watson is more of a drop back passer, but with the running ability. But, I say you take the player, you take the top player, and if you got to tailor your offense a little bit, you tailor your offense to him. You do what he does well. You don't pass on a quarterback just because he doesn't fit your scheme.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm getting to here. So, yeah, I don't see why the Falcons wouldn't want to trade up because, this is a guy who can be your quarterback for a long time. And if you put the pieces around him, he will make that terrible pass protecting offensive line a lot less noticeable. So you got that there, but again, he is a guy who can throw. Zozo, I'm trying to make a point here. He is a guy who can throw, and I think he would fit with whatever Arthur Smith wanted him to do. So bring him in. He's talented. This guy's, he's uber talented. You got to bring in talent when you get the chance to get him. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, when is the last time an MVP, a former MVP at 26 years old, was available?
Yeah.
And I think that he would be available and no one is interested. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that's.
So you do have to. I mean, the thought about collusion, it might not be true, might be true, but it's going to be out there. Again, and this might not be the only season where it happens. I mean, if they do decide on a franchise tag, or if they guarantee 2 years for Lamar Jackson, I've been seeing that floated as a possibility that Jackson and the Ravens come to a guaranteed deal on fewer years, like a 2 or 3 year deal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then, that kicks the can down the road a little bit. But, the speculation right now is that the Ravens don't want to go 5 years guaranteed. And I can't say that I blame them.
I don't necessarily blame them either. I think Baltimore's being very smart. And actually, what may end up happening is Jackson is forced to play on the franchise tag. If no one is interested in him, the Ravens, I mean, this was a risk by making him available, but maybe they knew that no one would want to offer him this big contract that he wanted, and he would end up having to crawl back to them. That's what it's looking like it's going to happen right now.
Looking like. It's interesting because Baltimore has a great organization.
They do.
Under Ozzie Newsome and now under Eric DeCastro. And Eric DeCastro worked under Ozzie Newsome for years. And DeCastro had a chance to go to a lot of places and be a general manager. He stayed in Baltimore. He wanted to work with Ozzie Newsome. So it's an outstanding organization. It's an outstanding organization as far as how they handle their players, how they acquire players, how they draft, how they handle free agency. It's one of the best in the NFL, and this is how they decided to handle it. So, but again, on Jackson's side, he's got the NFLPA in his ear saying, don't break the trend. We've got a fully guaranteed 5-year deal. Do not break from that trend that has now been supposedly established with the Deshaun Watson deal. So, and that's kind of the wild card in all of this. Jackson not having an agent to float rumors out onto the media, out onto social media, or float offers, or do something to force the Ravens' hand. Jackson himself, with the NFLPA, is not going to be forcing the Ravens' hand. Not having a agent is going to hurt him in this negotiation, because he might end up having to take like a 2-year guaranteed deal if he wants full guaranteed money.
Tony had a question for us several minutes ago. I guess a question for me. He said, can you see Baltimore and Washington trading a bunch of picks with each other, with the main players being Lamar Jackson and Jerron Payne going to Baltimore? I think that's less likely because, Washington can just give up 2 first-round picks for him if they want to negotiate with him.
Right.
If they want Lamar Jackson, just talk to him. You don't have to work out a trade.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't have to give up Jerron Payne. You have to give up 2 first-round picks. But if you're Carolina, and I'm not saying Carolina should have gone for Lamar Jackson instead of the number 1 pick. I think they're confident they're going to get a guy they like at number 1.
Yep.
If you're the Colts now, and you are going to get Richardson probably at number 4, and I think the big thing to like about Richardson is he might be the next Lamar Jackson. Why not just go for Lamar Jackson instead of getting maybe the next Lamar Jackson?
Right. Take the guy has the talents.
Yeah.
And has done it in the NFL. So don't take the guy who you're speculating might be able to do it in the NFL.
Right.
Take the guy who can do it.
Yeah. And we have some good comments from Wallace. He says Roman didn't get fired. He stepped down. I said he got fired. And you're right, Wallace. He stepped down. Maybe a little bit of semantics there. Ravens are kind of remind me of the Steelers. The Steelers don't fire coaches, but sometimes the Steelers push coaches out. I think the Ravens might have pushed.
I think there might have been a hand in his back.
Yeah. But you're right. He did resign and step down. He did not get fired. And the other thing Wallace said is I think the 2 injury-prone playoff seasons is another reason why teams don't want to give Jackson the contract that Watson got. And I think that's the other big factor at play right now. And I think that's why the Ravens haven't just said, here, blank check for Lamar Jackson, because he hasn't been there for him in December and January the last year.
And there was some questions about whether he could have played last January in the playoffs, whether he could have been available or not. There's some people who say that he didn't push it. He could have pushed it. That was not an injury that should have sat him on the bench as long as it did. That's hard to say. I don't know. And that's another wild card in this whole thing. Because, again, it depends on who you listen to. Everybody's going to have their own take on what is going on, what happened with Lamar Jackson last year, what's in his mind now. As I said last week, this is all a big poker game. Sometimes don't listen to everything that's being said out in public, because a lot of things get floated just to see what the reaction will be for him. So it's tough to say right now with Lamar Jackson. All I know is Lamar Jackson's talented.
That is for sure. We do know that for sure. A couple comments from, I think, first-time commenters. I'm not 100% sure, but Eric Mack says, I think Falcons are going defense and free agency. That would be that's definitely a need. Definitely would be. We want to see them draft the edge rusher, but adding a complementary edge rusher like a Yannick Ngakoue we've mentioned on the show.
Yannick Ngakoue, I think, would be perfect.
Yeah.
For the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that would be a great get in free agency. Hopefully next week they do something. And Champagne Bath says kind of the opposite. You all say that defensive stuff every year, but it never happens. Get over it. He's telling us to get over it, Tom, that they never go after defense, and they're not going to this year, basically.
Well, and this is why they haven't made the playoffs in a while, why they haven't had a 500 record in a while. I get you, Champ. champagne bath. It's true. They haven't. And maybe we should jump off that train. But, the purpose here is to say what we feel the Falcons should do. And they have to do the defense at some point. If they don't, then I'm going to come on the following week and I'm going to give them hell for it. I will.
And we should. So
we should.
That's a great tease for next week because we're out of time. We've hit the hour mark. Time. It flew by.
Yeah, I know. And but we got DJ Moore coming to the Bears, so we got to feel good about that. Or I got to feel good about that. You guys don't, because you guys got to feel good that DJ Moore isn't in the NFC South anymore. I think we just hit the over. So
at the very end, at the buzzer.
At the buzzer, we got it.
That today's show was brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. Get started with our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. And we were under on the bet that I said with DJ Moore. How many times Tom will say the name DJ Moore today? In the last minute, you said it twice. So we've got 6. We hit the over.
Yep, we got it.
I don't know. I think that was collusion. I think Tom bet the over himself, and he mentioned it twice at the end of the show.
Well, hey, we both bet the over.
That's true. I was right as well. So thanks for tuning in this Saturday. We'll be back next week with, I'm sure, another busy show talking all free agency.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a fun week. Have a great week, everyone.